Welcome back, everyone. My name's Baerick, and this is Method Medley. Today we're going to show a video of something that might seem relatively basic. We're going to do a video on how to build a picnic table, but more than a typical standard picnic table that you might see at a park. We're going to do something a little different that has a feature that you've probably never seen in a picnic table that offers some benefits to how you use that table. The particular table we are going to build, we like to call the folding bench or the flip bench table. It looks like a standard picnic table, but the sides, the seats rather, they fold up on a hinge underneath the table. What's so nice about that feature? Well, as we're going to show you, a lot of us are gardeners, and we like to work at a station about waist level. But with a standard picnic table, the benches are always stationary about at your knees, and so you can't get up close to your work. With the table we're going to build, we can fold the bench up out of the way so that you can get up tight next to your work. When you want to sit next to your work, you just fold the bench down and you can have a seat. Additionally, this allows you to hide the seat under the table, allowing you to always have a dry seat when you want to sit down, and eliminates excessive moisture and unnecessary rot to the product that you're building. So let's get started. Right here, what you're looking at is my leg jig. This jig, after I made a set of legs, I built a frame around the legs, forming this jig pattern. And now that's going to cut the time it takes for me to make the sets of legs next time. So now all I need to know is my dimensions as far as length, 22.5 degrees. I need to cut 2 of those 2x6s, and then I need my stringer that connects the 2 together, which is about 64 inches long. And I know that that can all sit right here. So let's see what it looks like with the pattern inside. And there's our pattern. We have a stop right here, and this dimension from here to here is 64 inches. I like to 45 the ends here to eliminate the sharp edges. And now we're gonna make another set of legs just like this. So here, as you see, we have our compound miter saw. We wanna make a quick note about safety. Whenever operating equipment, anything that can cut you, always have eye protection and protect your hearing. We only get one set of eyes and ears. Let's keep them safe. So let's make our cut now. This dimension, I have a mark here at 64 degrees, I have a mark here at 64 inches, which is the same as our previous stringer on the set of legs that we showed you on the jig. So we're gonna make one more for our second set of legs, and then we'll be ready to assemble. So as we mentioned before on the jig, at the end of our stringer, I like to cut off the points of the 2x6. It gets rid of that sharp edge. So we're gonna do that now. Taking your square, run it over to on the 45-degree line, and we're gonna take just about 1.5 inches off of each end. So as we determined earlier, 22.5 degrees on both. This will fit right here in our jig. Same thing here. I always like to look at both sides of the board, and it's a matter of opinion. What side you think is nicer looking? I think that side is nicer looking, therefore it'll be facing out, and that'll be what people see. Now let's fasten them together. So we put 2 screws in our material. Now, that itself is not what's going to hold this together. That's just so we can finish the assembling of it. Actually, we're going to use 5/16, 3.5 inch long carriage bolts when this is finished. That just allows us to assemble it. And these two screws, they're about 1 inch down from the top, and they're in a straight line because it looks good. The two bolts that we place will be at a 45-degree angle, about 1.5 inches into the material, and that'll give this a solid basis to rest. Here we have a jig for the hinge of the bench that's going to fold up and down. This has been determined at the same 22.5-degree angle, and it sits right there, and it's 2 inches in from our hinge, which you'll see in a moment, which is also a 2x6 at about 15 inches long. And then that plus this material is going to receive a bolt, and that will act as our hinge that allows our bench to go up and down. So as you can see, the leg is sitting the way you're going to see it once the table is completed. So right now, we're building our table upside down. We're going to take it and we're going to flip it in place. And it's important that we don't just let this sit anywhere. Notice I have marks for where the end of my miter needs to land for both legs, and it's about 2 inches in. So we'll slide that till it meets its mark. We have one on this side as well. It's hard to see. If I scoot it there, you can see it. And there we go. It's good to have a couple of C-clamps. And you want to clamp the set of legs to the brace or the cleat that's holding our table together. If you have two of them, it's all the better. Pinch it together, and now I can walk away from my work and I can complete putting our 2.5 inch fasteners in. One other detail, it's important that the screw goes in straight. That might seem like an unnecessary statement, but it's so easy for it to start to toenail and go up or down at an angle. We want the screws to go in straight, only then will it be at its maximum strength. And I will emphasize one more time, it's not necessary to ever bury your screw into the material. We just want it to indent the material slightly so that it's tied up against our work. So we've just assembled our two sets of legs, but this by itself is not enough to keep it stable. So there has to be what's called a knee brace that connects them to the tabletop itself on both legs. So what we're going to do is show you how to make that. So here we have another piece of Douglas fir 2x6. Now we've cut one end, mitered one end at a 45-degree angle. We're going to put that right there like that. Take our pencil and we'll scribe it so that we know when we cut that line, it meets the bottom of our table. Additionally, we've got this 1.5 inch piece sticking up here. I just want to make a mark there, little arrow. I'm going to cut that off flat, and we'll do that for two of them. So now as we've cut our knee braces in place, we want one on each side, integrating the legs to the tabletop itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to run it straight into the set of legs, pushing this back so that it meets right about there, about flush with the top. We'll take our drill, we'll place one screw Sometimes this part's easier if you have a helper, but it can be done when you're by yourself. And then you want to check and see that you're still square with your material. So there we are. I'm gonna put one on the top. So now we've assembled with screws, the legs, the knee braces, and the tabletop. So now it's able to support itself. So let's flip it over and begin assembling our benches. Bear in mind, these Douglas fir tables are heavy. So it's best you just do it nice and slow, let it roll off the sawhorses. And there's our basic table. So now we're going to assemble our bench. The same length boards that make up our tabletop will be the same dimensions as our bench. So we want to cut two 6-foot 2x6s out of a 12-foot piece of stock, so that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to cut this 12-footer in half, two 6-footers. So now we've cut our benches, our bench boards. So typical picnic table boards. We're going to go something like this. And this by itself, we can sit on and have a good time. But the purpose of this video is to show you how to make this bench, like a door, have a hinge and fold up underneath the table. So now we need to make the wooden hinges that are going to hinge this bench. Let's do that. Now the hinge in this case is complete with a 5/16 bolt, 3.5 inches long, and a 2x6 that is ultimately the hinge. Where do we put that bolt hole so that it lands just like so every time? We're going to show you how to do that right now. So in order to hinge this properly, we don't want this to run into the edge of our table. So we need to know exactly how far back the hinge needs to be so that it clears the underside of our table. We also need to know the distance of the underside, which is about 13 inches. Our two boards are about 11 inches. So we have about 2 inches of play to work with, 1.5 inches. And then we have about 1.5 inches to 2 inches in on our hinge and about 2 inches down. From there, we make our pilot hole and we put our hinge bolt. So here, our hinge board is about 14.5 inches. The placement of our bolt needs to be about 2 inches in and 2 inches down. 22.5 degrees. We'll make this in. And we just leave it about 1.5 inches from the edge, allowing that bevel to run smooth. So we've made our first hinge. We need one per side of the bench, so we need 4 altogether. So we need 3 more of these. For that, we're just going to use this as a template. Make our lines. Move it down. So let's cut all 3 of these off right here, and that way we don't have to fuss with the rest of the board. So here you have our 4 stack of wooden hinges. Now let's make our pilot hole for the bolt that's going to cause the hinge. So as you recall, when we were inside the shop, I showed you this little baby. Like the handwriting, this is a seat jig. This actually has come in very handy. If you make a little jig according to the angle of your leg and the position of the hinge, you don't have to measure every time. And that's what this is for. This sits right here. Nice little seat. We'll take our drill. Now we have the placement of our hinge. So we need to mark out where the bolt is going to go on our wooden hinge. And for that, just remember, 2 and 2. We have to go 2 inches in and 2 inches down. And there we have it. We landed just right. So we need to drill that hole perfectly on all 4. Let's set our hinges in place. We've made our pilot holes. If we line them up right here, we want a washer on the inside of the hinge. That makes it for a smooth transition when opening and closing. And let's fit it right here. Put our other washer right here. These are carriage bolts, so you need a hammer or a mallet to get it in place. So now, keeping this flush with the top of your stringer, I'm going to tighten that bolt down. Some of you might be asking, how do I determine which direction to face my hinge bolt? I could feed it through this side. I've chosen to feed it through this side. Why? Because when I'm sitting here, when someone's sitting here, you have this sharp edge that will stick out. And we'll file that down before we're done. But when you're sitting, having a good time, swinging your leg around, we don't want someone's calf to catch that. So we put the flat side of the bolt on the inside so that your leg can rub up against it and you never have to be injured. So now we're going to set our bench on our hinge. And in order to do that, we want to make sure that we're lined up with the tabletop. But the placement of our seat is crucial. So after we set our hinge and we tighten the bolt snug, take your tape measure and give yourself 4 inches from the hinge to your bench. 4 inches on both sides. So we've determined our measurement from the end of the hinge to the bench is 4 inches. At that point, putting some weight on the seat, let's make a pilot hole for our screw. And it's good to make straight screw or fastening lines. It just looks prettier. Same thing over here. Now we're going to fasten the final part of the bench itself. We want to have a spacing between each one for expansion and contraction. Again, this is Oregon, but as a rule, it's good not to butt your material up tight. So about 1/8 of an inch is all that's needed. We'll apply some weight to this one and put it in place. Well, there you have it. Now, your table bench will fold up nicely underneath. Now I can work at my table and get close to my work. When it's time to have a seat and have something to eat, we can do just that. Additionally, this is also nice too, when you want to move the table, these stringers work as handles. You can either lift it from the end, but if you have 4 people, everybody grab an end, and it's nice and light and easy to move. But this is a feature that'll serve you well over time because it offers a variety of provisions to your outdoor table. Again, if you're a gardener, if you're a shop mechanic, and you want to set something heavy right on this table, and this can handle a lot of weight, you can work right here. If you want to sit down at your work, then you can do that as well. This development came to me because I'm an Oregonian, and here it rains all the time. And I just hate sitting on a wet seat. So I thought, how can I preserve my seat so that it'll last long, but I'm not sitting where it's wet after I go outside when it has rained? So what do you think of that? I'll bet you've never seen a table like that before. And in my experience, people love things that are on a hinge or are versatile, like a drawer that goes in and out, up and down. It's different. But this actually accomplishes something. It eliminates you having to sit on a wet seat. It gets the seat out of the way so that you can use the table as a station if you want to. It's a very unique feature that can be offered to a standard picnic table, and it's something that you can accomplish with minimum tools as a fun project. If you're retired, if you have grandchildren, if you want something fun to do over a weekend, this is a great project to do, and it offers a variety of benefits. And these tables, whether you build them out of cedar or out of fir, these will last for many years. I do recommend that you put an exterior finish, a varnish on them of some kind to protect them from the elements, but other than that, it's going to last you a long time. If you enjoyed this video, and we hope that you did, make sure you like and subscribe down below. Again, my name is Baerick, and this is Method Medley. We'll see you next time.